Hello everyone. Today I'm going to teach you the lesson Should Wizard Hit Mommy, lesson number 5 from the VISTAS book. Should Wizard Hit Mommy? The lesson written by John Updike. Who is John Updike? John Updike was an American novelist. He was a poet, he was a short story writer, and his most famous works includes the Rabbit series. He wrote about the fictional stories that concerns and the sufferings of normal average Americans and build up these Rabbit series and stories. So does this our story Should Wizard Hit Mommy? This short story hints towards how a girl, how a child views the world in a different way than her parents, how her father looks towards the world, and how she imagined a different world, and how she raises the moral questions, how she raises the questions that comes in the story part, and how she confronts one of the characters and feel for him or her during the storyline. So this story here, there are many characters, and she relate and she names them only Roger. Everything she puts their name, first name is Roger, and there is Owl, who is very intelligent and nice owl, because he guides all the creatures, all the animals to reach to the wizard, and wizard help their problems. He solve these problems and give them solutions. So here is the story. Before you read, here is a story about the worldview of a child and the difficult moral question she raises during the story session with her father. In the evenings and on Saturday's nap, like today's, Jack told his daughter Jo a story out of his head. Jack कौन है? Jack is the father of Jo. जो को वो हर सैटरडे इवनिंग्स में वो स्टोरी नरेट करते थे, बट वो कह रहे हैं कि अब ही इज़ आउट ऑफ हिज हेड, स्टोरीज अब नहीं बची उनके माइंड में. दिस कस्टम बिगिन व्हेन शी वॉज 2. ये कब से शुरू हो चुका था? जब वो 2 साल की थी. कौन? जो. वॉज इट सेल्फ नाउ नियरली 2 years old and his head felt empty. Each new story was a slight variation of basic tale. अब जैक क्या करता है कि कोई नई स्टोरी वो नहीं बिल्ड कर पाते, तो वो क्या करते हैं, एक बेसिक टेल है ले लेते हैं और उसी के अराउंड अलग अलग क्रिएचर्स डेवलप करते रहते हैं. A small creature usually named Roger, Roger fish, sometimes Roger squirrel, Roger chipmunk. He changes the creature but named them Roger. Had some problems and went with it wise old owl. अब इनको जब प्रॉब्लम होती थी, इन क्रिएचर्स को, इन एनिमल्स को, तो वो कहाँ जाते थे? एक वाइज ओल्ड आउल के पास जाते थे. द आउल टोल्ड हिम टू गो टू द विजर्ड. वो उनको कहता था कि आप कहाँ जाओ? विजर्ड के पास जाओ. एंड द विजर्ड परफॉर्म्ड अ मैजिक स्पेल दैट सॉल्व द प्रॉब्लम्स, डिमांडिंग इन पेमेंट अ नंबर ऑफ पेनीज ग्रेटर देन द नंबर दैट रोजर क्रिएचर हैड. वो डिमांड क्या करते थे बदले में? विज़र्ड हेल्प करने की, पेनीज, बहुत सारी पेनीज. बट इन द सेम ब्रेथ डायरेक्टिंग द एनिमल टू अ प्लेस वेयर द एक्स्ट्रा पेनीज कुड बी फाउंड. अब उनको वो हेल्प भी करते थे कि तुम्हें एक्स्ट्रा पेनीज कहाँ से मिल जाएंगी. Then Roger was so happy he played many games with other creatures and went home to his mother just in time to hear the train whistle that brought his daddy home from Boston. Any Roger means any Roger fish, Roger squirrel, Roger chipmunk. ये क्या करते थे? इनमें से कोई भी वो लोग दूसरे क्रिएचर्स के साथ, दूसरे एनिमल्स के साथ ये लोग खेलते थे. और शाम को जब उन्हें ट्रेन की विसल सुनाई देती थी, या किसी भी फॉर एग्ज़ाम्पल रोजर स्क्वेरल है, रोजर स्क्वेरल को अगर वो विसल सुनाई देती थी, तो वो घर की तरफ जाते थे क्योंकि वो क्या होती थी, वो ट्रेन की आवाज़ होती थी जिसमें उसके डैडी कहाँ से आते थे, बोस्टन से वापस आते थे। Jack described their supper. Supper means their dinner, their food, and the story was over. एंड में क्या करते थे जैक, उसके फादर जो के कैसे स्टार्ट करते थे कि कोई एक रोज़र होता है, उसको वाइज आउल गाइड करता है कि तुम कहाँ जाओ विज़र्ड के पास फॉर हेल्प। विज़र्ड क्या करता था, उनके लिए सॉल्यूशन निकालता था प्रॉब्लम का, पर बदले में क्या लेता था, पेनीज। और फिर वो प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व होने के बाद वो शाम तक खेलते थे, घर जाते थे, खाना खाते थे और स्टोरी वहीं एंड हो जाती थी। Working his way through this scheme was exceptionally fatiguing on Saturday because Joe never fell asleep in naps anymore and knowing this made the ride seem futile. अब क्या था, ये बहुत कंटिन्यूस चल रहा था, एक रिचुअल की तरह हो गया था स्टोरी टेलिंग, स्टोरी नरेटिंग टू जो। और जो क्या थी, वो सैटरडे को सोती नहीं थी विदाउट एनी स्टोरीज। द लिटिल गर्ल, अब डिस्क्रिप्शन है सारा, किस राइटर किसके बारे में बता रहा है, जो के बारे में बता रहा है। नॉट सो लिटिल एनी मोर, द बम्प्स हर फीट मेड अंडर द कवर्स वर हाफ वे डाउन द बेड, दे बिग डबल बेड दैट दे लेट हर बी इन नेप्स एंड व्हेन शी वाज सिक। ये बताया कि वो पूरा सीन डिस्क्राइब कर रहे हैं, हाउ शी यूज टू स्लीप इन हर बेड एंड बेड कवर्स। द लिटिल गर्ल हैड एट लास्ट अरेंज्ड हर सेल्फ एंड फ्रॉम द वे हर फैट फेस डीप इन द pillow shone in the sunlight shifting through the drawn shades, it didn't seem fantastic that some magic would occur and she would take her nap like an infant of two. Here writer is describing how she sleeps and how she wakes up and how she feels there is magic around her. Her brother Bobby, her father name is Jack, she is Joe, and her brother name is Bobby, was two and already sleep with his bottle. Jack asked, "Who shall the story be about today?" आज तुम कौन सी स्टोरी सुनोगी, या आज किसके बारे में स्टोरी होगी? Roger. Joe squeezed her eyes shut and smiled to be thinking she was thinking. Her eyes opened, her mother's blue shunk. Skunk, she said firmly. Today she is going to uh, listen about the story of Roger Skunk, a new animal. They must talk about skunks at nursery school. Having a fresh hero momentarily stirred Jack to creative enthusiasm. And here, Joe introduced a new character, Roger Skunk. So, Jack has to build up a new creative story and enthusiasm for her. All right, he said, once upon a time, in the deep dark woods, there was a tiny little creature by the name of Roger Skunk, and he smelled very bad. Skunk fall in the category of squirrel and rabbits. Yes, Joe said. He smelled so bad that none of the other little woodland creatures would play with him. He smelled so bad, as you have heard in your childhood and you have seen in cartoons as well. There is a creature, he looks like a squirrel, tail upright and brownish and blackish shade. So he used to smell bad. Joe looked at him solemnly. He didn't foresee this. Whenever he would go out to play, Jack continued with jest, with enthusiasm, and he started creating a different world for Joe. Jack continued with jest, remembering certain humiliation of his own childhood. Here, Jack feels how he is so humiliated about his childhood. He relates with the story of Rosa's skunk. All of the other tiny animals would cry, "Oh, oh, here comes Roger's stinky skunk." सब उसका मजाक उड़ाते थे, किसका? रोजर्स skunk का कि वो स्टिंकी है, he smells very bad, and they would run away. सब भाग जाते थे, and Roger skunk would stand देयर ऑल अलोन, बेचारा वहाँ अकेला रह जाता, कोई उसके साथ खेलता नहीं, सब भाग जाते। एंड टू लिटिल राउंड टीयर्स वुड फॉल फ्रॉम हिज आईज, द कॉर्नर ऑफ जोज माउथ ड्रॉप डाउन एंड हर लोअर लिप बेंट forward as he traced with a forefinger along the side of her nose the course of one of Roger's skunk's tears. कैसे? जैसे वहाँ पे स्टोरी में रोज़ स्कंक रो रहा है, यहाँ पे क्या हुआ, जो भी सैड है और वो भी ऐसे उदास हो चुकी है। वोंट ही सी द आउल? देखो ये फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन यहाँ से रेज हो रहा है जो का कि क्या वो आउल के पास नहीं जा रहा? क्यों? क्यों वो आउल के पास उसको भेजना चाह रही है? क्योंकि आउल उसको गाइड करेगा कि वो विज़र्ड के पास जाए और उसका ये सॉल्यूशन निकाले इसकी स्मेली एंड ऑल ऑफ दिस टिंकिंग थिंग, कि बाकी सारे क्रिएचर्स फिर इसके साथ खेलना स्टार्ट कर दें। वोंट ही सी द आउल? Sitting on the bed beside her, Jack felt the cover tug as her legs switched tensely. अब क्या जैक क्या फील कर रहा है कि जो बहुत चाहती है एंड शी इज़ सो टेंस कि वो आउल के पास जाए। He was pleased with this moment. He was telling her something true, कि ये बिल्कुल सच है, something she must know and had no wish to hurry on. But downstairs a chair scraped and he realized he must get down to help Claire. Who is Claire? Claire is Jack's wife. To paint the living room woodwork. अब जैक को क्या आ रहा है, एक तरफ ये कहानी नरेट कर रहा है जो के साथ, यहाँ पे जो पूरी एक्साइटेड है, पर दूसरी तरफ क्या चल रहा है, उसको आवाज़ आती है कि क्लियर लिविंग रूम में काम कर रही है, वहाँ पेंट का काम चलने वाला है और उसको हेल्प भी करनी है। वेल, he walked along very sadly and came to a very big tree, and in the tip top of the tree was an enormous wise old owl. कहाँ पहुँच गया अब skunk? रोजर skunk एक बिग वाइज आउल के पास, ओल्ड आउल के पास आ गया। Good, Mr. Owl, Roger Skunk said. All the other little animals run away from me because I smell so bad. So you do, the owl said, very, very bad. What can I do? Roger Skunk said, and he cried very hard. अब वो आउल को सारा बताता है कि उसकी क्या क्या प्रॉब्लम है, और आउल भी कहता है कि यस यू डू स्मेल वेरी बैड। तो रोज़र और भी ज़्यादा रोने लगता है और कहता है मेरी हेल्प करो। द विज़र्ड। अब यहाँ पे जो चिल्लाने लगती है कि विज़र्ड विज़र्ड, एंड सेट राइट अप, वो उठ खड़ी होती है, एंड अ लिटिल गोल्डन बुक स्पिल्ड फ्रॉम द बेड। अब क्या है, एक गोल्डन बुक गिर जाती है बेड से। नाउ जो डैडी टेलिंग द स्टोरी, डू यू वांट टू टेल डैडी द स्टोरी? अब क्योंकि वो बुक बाहर निकल जाती है तो जैक कहता है कि क्या तुम्हें स्टोरी सुनानी है? मैं स्टोरी सुना रहा हूँ। नो यू मी। जो कहती है कि नहीं आप ही सुनाओ। देन लाई डाउन एंड बी स्लीपी, हर हेड रिप्लेस्ड इनटू the pillow, and she said, out of your head. Well, the owl thought and thought, owl ने सोचा और सोचा, and last he said, why don't you go to see the wizard? Daddy, what? Are magic spells real? यहाँ पे जो फिर से क्वेश्चन पुट करती है, this was a new phase just this last month, a reality phase. When he told her spiders eat bugs, she turned to her mother and asked, do they really? And when Claire told her God was in the sky and all around them, she turned to her father and insisted with a sly yet eager smile, is he really? So Jo has a habit of asking many questions. Sometimes she asks from her mother, and sometimes she asks from her father that God exists and how spider eat bugs. Now her next question is, are magic spells real? They are real in stories, Jack answered curtly. जैक ने फटाफट से आंसर दिया कि नहीं, स्टोरीज में रियल होते हैं ओनली। She had made him miss a bit in the narrative because she is asking questions again and again. So she is breaking the flow of the story, of the narrative. The owl said, "Go through the dark woods under the apple trees into the swamp over the creek." आउल क्या कहता है रोज़र को कि तुम डार्क वुड्स में जाओ, वहाँ पे एप्पल ट्रीज मिलेंगे तुम्हें और फिर एक स्वैम्प मिलेगा दलदल ओवर द क्रिक. व्हाट इज़ अ क्रिक? जो का नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. A little river over the creek and there will be the wizard's house. क्या कहते हैं कि एक छोटी सी नदी बह रही है और वहाँ पे उस विजर्ड का घर है. And that's the way Roger's skunk went and pretty soon he came a little white house and he rapped on the door. अब वो डोर पे खटखटाता है, उसको एक वाइट हाउस मिलता है. जैक रैप्ड ऑन द विंडो सिल. अब वो पहले दरवाजे पे खटखटाता है, फिर वो विंडो के फ्रेम पे सिल पे वो खटखटाता है. एंड अंडर द कवर्स जो टॉल फिगर क्लेंच्ड इन अ इनफेटाइल थ्रिल. अब जो बहुत एक्साइटेड है कि आगे क्या होगा, आगे क्या होगा. एंड देन ए टाइनी लिटिल ओल्ड मैन केम आउट with a long white beard and a pointed blue hat and said, "Ah, what is?" अब कौन बाहर निकल के आता है? एज यू कैन सी इन दिस photo, in this pic, this is the long beard he has and this is the pointed blue hat. And he asks, "What does you want? What you want? You smell awful. You smell so bad." This wizard's voice was one of Jack's own favorite effects. यहाँ पे जैक क्या करता है? ऐसे different different surprising आवाज़ें निकालता है. He did it by scrunching up his face and somehow winning through his eyes, which felt for the interval remuni. अब क्या है, जैक यहाँ पे स्टोरी नरेट कर रहा है प्लस ही इज़ एक्टिंग विद हिज वॉइस एंड हिज hands, how he's scratching his face, how he's making this very exciting. He felt being an old man suited him. "I know it," Rosa Skunk said, "and all the little animals run away from me. The enormous wise owl said you could help me." अब रोजर क्या कहता है कि "Yes, I know I smell so bad and everyone, every other little creature ran away from me and owl said you will help me. You could help me. Ah, well, maybe. Come on in. Don't you get too close, but don't you get too close to me." This is all saying wizard. Wizard is saying, "Now inside, Joe, there were all these magic things all jumbled together in a big dusty heap because the wizard did not have any cleaning lady." Now he is describing the house interior, how he is jumbled everything together and he is not cleaned up the place. Why? Because he was a wizard and a very old man. Will he die? Joe's next question. No, wizards don't die. Well, he rummaged around and found an old stick called a magic wand and asked Roger Skunk what he wanted to smell like. अब वो क्या है, विज़र्ड क्या करता है, ढूंढता है, उसको क्या मिली, एक विजर्ड मैजिक वैंड उसकी मिल जाती है उस बैग के अंदर से. और स्कंक को पूछता है कि तुम किसकी तरह स्मेल करना चाहते हो. रोजर थॉट एंड सेड रोजेस. रोजर क्या कहते हैं, मैं रोजेस की तरह स्मेल करना चाहता हूँ, गुलाब की तरह. यस, गुड, जो सेड स्मगली. वो जो भी खुश हो जाती कि यस बढ़िया है. Jack fixed her with a trance-like gaze and chanted in the wizard's elderly, irritable voice. अब जैसे वहाँ पे बुक में स्टोरी में जैसे वो नरेट कर रहा है, जैसे विज़र्ड स्पेल करता है, यहाँ पे जैक जो को स्पेल करके दिखाता है एज Abracadabra, hocus pocus, rocker skunk, how do you do? Roses, roses, pull an ear, Roger skunk, you never fear. Bingo! ऐसे वो उस पर ये स्पेल कर देता है और उसकी मैजिक विंड से स्पेल निकल के बाहर आता है. He paused as a rapt expression widened out from his daughter's nostrils, forcing her eyebrows up and her lower lip down in a wide noiselessly grin, an expression in which Jack was startled to recognize his wife feigning pleasure at cocktail parties. यहाँ पे जैक जैसे ही ये स्पेल करता है तो वो क्या देखता है कि जो बिल्कुल ऐसे शी इज़ really enjoying that spell, and her eyebrows up and her lip down and everything, her expression changes. Now on the other hand, Jack recognizes that his wife, she how she feels, and they have to go to the party, and how there is a different world going on, their real life, and there is story narrating. And all of a sudden he whispered, the whole inside of the wizard's house was full of the smell of roses. Roses! Rosa Fish cried. Now Rosa Fish cried. And the wizard said very cranky, that all be 7 pennies. अब ये क्या है, ये कहता है कि मैंने तुम पे स्पेल किया है, तो ये कितना, तुम्हें मुझे कितने पेनीज देने पड़ेंगे? 7. डैडी, व्हाट? रोज skunk, you said Rosa fish. Yes, skunk. Now Jack did a mistake. Now Joe correct him. You said Rosa fish, wasn't that silly? Very silly of your stupid old daddy. Where was I? Well, you know about the pennies? Say it. Okay, Rosa skunk said. Well, all I have is 4 pennies. Skunk क्या कहता है कि मेरे पास 4 ही pennies हैं. And he began to cry. वो रोने लग गया. Joe made the crying face again. She also started crying, but this time without a trace of sincerity. This annoyed Jack. Downstairs, some more furniture rumbled. Okay, there are two different scenarios. There are two different scenes going side by side. They are interwoven together. One is the life of the real life of Jack that's going on, and the other is the unreal world, the imaginative world that has created through the story and how he is narrated to the Joe. Claire shouldn't move heavy things. She was 6 months pregnant. It would be their third. अब वो उनका तीसरा बच्चा आने वाला है. So the wizard said, "Oh, very well. Go to the end of the lane and turn around 3 times and look down the magic well, and there you will find 3 pennies." अब देखो, इसके पास रोजर्स कंक के पास 3 ही पेनी है, उसको 7 चाहिए विज़र्ड को. वो उसको रास्ता दिखाता है कि तुम्हें और पेनीज कहाँ से मिल जाएंगी, मैजिक वेल से. हरी अप, जल्दी करो. सो रोजर skunk went to the end of the lane and turned around 3 times, and there is a magic well worth 3 pennies. So he took them back to the wizard and was very happy and ran into the woods, and all the other little animals gathered around him because he smelled so good. He smelled of roses, and they played tag, baseball, face, football, basketball, lacrosse, hockey, soccer, and pick up sticks. अब क्या हुआ? As he smells so good, smells of roses, everyone started playing with him. They played so many games together. What's pick up sticks? अब जो क्वेश्चन पूछती है कि pick up sticks क्या होता है? It is a game you play with sticks, like the wizard's magic wand, kind of. And they played games and laughed all afternoon, and then it began to get dark, and they all ran home with their mommies. Now, Jo was starting to fuss with her hands and look out of the window and the crack of the day that showed under the shade. She thought the story was all over. Jack didn't like women when they took anything for granted, so he liked them apprehensive, hanging on his words. Now, Joe, are you listening? Yes, because this is very interesting, Roger Skunk's mommy said. What is that awful smell? जो को क्या लगा था कि स्टोरी ख़त्म हो गई है, शी इज़ इन ए डिफरेंट मूड. अब वो विंडो से बाहर देखती कि नहीं, ऐसी स्टोरी कैसे एंड हो सकती है. अभी स्टोरी कंटिन्यूड है. अब क्या है, रोजर क्योंकि अभी तो अपने दोस्तों के साथ खेल रहा था, जैसे ही वो अपनी मम्मी के पास जाता है तो उसकी मम्मी को तो ये डिफरेंट स्मेल लगती है, क्योंकि दे डू स्मेल बैड ऑल्सो. What? And Roger skunk said, "It's me, mommy. I smell like roses." And she said, "Who made you smell like that?" And he said, "The wizard." And she said, "Well, of the nerve. You come with me and we are going right back to the very awful wizard." अब उसकी मम्मी को बिल्कुल पसंद नहीं आया. Joe sat up, her hands dabbling in the air with genuine fright. "But Daddy," then he said about the other little animals run away. Her hands skittered off into the underbrush. अब जो बिल्कुल टेंशन में है वो अलग अलग हरकतें कर रही है, उसके हाथ ऐसे, शी इज़ वेरी फ्राइटेंड. अब उसको क्या डर लग रहा है कि आपने तो कहा था कि सब उससे उसके एनिमल्स भाग जाएंगे उसकी अगर स्मेल वापस आ जाती है तो. "All right," he said, "but mommy, all the other little animals run away." And she said, "I don't care. You smell the way a little skunk should have, and I am going to take you right back to the wizard." And she took an umbrella and went back with Roger's skunk and hit that wizard right over the head. अब वो कहाँ पहुँच गए? विज़र्ड के पास पहुँच गए गुस्से में. "No," Joe said, and put her hand out to touch his lips. Yet even her agitation did not quite dare to stop the source of truth. Inspiration came to her. Then the wizard hit her on the head and did not change that little skunk bag. A wizard क्या है? She totally wants that Roger skunk um, should be smell like roses and he shouldn't be changed to his previous smell. As Jack said that his mother hit wizard on head, so now Joe wants that wizard should hit her back on her head. "No," he said. The wizard said, "Okay." And Roger's skunk did not smell roses anymore. But wizard मान गया कि चलो ठीक है. He smelled very bad again. But other little animal, John, it's Daddy's story. Shall Daddy not tell you any more stories?" Her broad face looked at him through shifting light, astounded. "This is what happened then." अब क्या है, ये जो स्टोरी बीच में बिल्डअप की है ये जॉन ने बिल्ड कर ली कि ऐसा होना चाहिए, उसको विज़र्ड को वापस हिट करना चाहिए उसकी मम्मी को, सो दैट ही डजंट चेंज हिज स्मेल. बट अभी जैक इंटरवीन करता और कहता है कि ये तो मेरी स्टोरी है ना, मुझे नरेट करनी चाहिए ना. यस. Skunk and his mommy went home and they heard woo 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 woo, and it was co train bringing Daddy Skunk home from Boston. And they had lima beans, celery, liver, mashed potato and pie oh my for dessert. ये उनका डेजर्ट जैसे सपर जैसे जैक डिस्क्राइब करता है. And when Roger skunk was in bed, mommy skunk came up and hung him and said he smelled like a little baby skunk again and she loved him very much. And that's the end of the story. But Daddy, what then? Did the other animals run away? No, because eventually they got used to the way he was and did not mind it all. What is even she led? In a little while, that was a stupid mommy. It was not, he said, with a rare emphasis, and believed from her expression that she realized she was defending his own mother to her, or even, or sometimes as odd. "Now, I want you to put your big heavy head in the pillow and have a good long nap." He adjusted the shade so not even a crack of day showed, and tiptoed to the door in the pretense that she was already asleep. अब यहाँ पे जैक कोशिश करता है कि जैसे उसने स्टोरी एंड अप की है जो इसी को अडेप्ट कर ले और वो सोने की कोशिश करे और सब कुछ वो जैसे ही put the lights and everything. But when he turned, he was crouching on top of the covers and staring at him. "Hey, get under the covers and fall fast asleep, Bobby, asleep." अब क्या है, जो नहीं सोना चाहती बट जैक कोशिश कर रहा है कि वो सो जाए और कहता है कि देखो बॉबी भी सो गया। शी स्टूड अप एंड बाउंस जिंजरली ऑन द स्प्रिंग्स। अब वो क्या है, ऐसे बेड पे ऐसे खड़ी होके कूदने लग जाती है। डैडी व्हाट टुमारो आई वांट टू टेल मी द स्टोरी दैट द विज़र्ड टुक दैट मैजिक wand एंड हिट दैट मॉमी। Her plump arms strode forcefully right over the head. अब क्या है, जो बिल्कुल रिलेट कर रही है रोजर स्कंक के साथ कि उसके साथ बुरा हुआ, वो अच्छी तरह वो रोजेस की तरह स्मेल कर सकता था, बट वो चाहती है कि उसकी मम्मी को विजर्ड हिट करे। No, that's not the story. The point is that the little skunk loved his mommy more than he loved all other little animals, and she knew what was right. अब यहाँ पे एज ए पेरेंट और एक एज ए चाइल्ड रिलेशनशिप यहाँ पे डेवलप हो रहा है। टू डिफरेंसेस दे आर शोइंग दैट how her Rosa's mother is right, and she wanted her child to be the exact smelled like as before. So does Jack wants that Joe should be adapted to the stories that Jack has told her. No, tomorrow you say he hit that mommy. Do it. She kicked her legs up and sat down on the bed with a great heave and complained of spring. So she had done hundreds of time before. She is not totally satisfied what Jack has told her about the story. She wanted to punish Jack Roger's mother. Say daddy, well we see. अब जय कह रहा है कि चलो हम देखते हैं. Now at least have a rest. Stay on the bed. You are a good girl. He closed the door and went downstairs. Claire had spread the newspaper and opened the paint can, and wearing an old shirt of his on top of her maternity smock, was stroking the chair rail with a dip brush. अब यहाँ पे क्या डिस्क्रिप्शन है, क्या सीन है? Scene shifted to their living room where they are going, where Claire is going to paint everything. There is newspaper spread everywhere. Above him footsteps vibrated and he called, John, shall I come up there and spank you? The footsteps hesitated. That was a long story, Claire said. The poor kid, he answered, and with utter weariness watched his wife labor. The woodwork, a cage of mouldings and rails and baseboards all around them, was half old tin and half new ivory, and he felt caught in an ugly middle position. And though he was well felt his wife's presence in the case with him, he did not want to speak with her, work with her, touch with her, anything. Why Jackie felt this world so different? He is totally enjoying all the story things. He also wants to neglect his real life, his work life, his wife's life, and everything. He somehow where he always also wants to go to the his imaginative world with Joe again, and he's neglecting everything around him. So this is our lesson, and these will be the different questions. Okay, revise and try to understand story. Thank you.